I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Hornady Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Swerzik. And before we start in on this episode, if you haven't yet, you're going to want to go backwards and listen to episode 32, where we talked about preseason pronghorn, because here we are mid-October, and we are now doing postseason pronghorn, doing a recap. So, to my right, fellow marketeer Judd Jarzinka, across from him, Preston Lempfer, and project engineer Ryan Damon. Guys, thanks for coming around the table.
You bet. Our antelope season's finally closed.
It's closed, and we're joined at the table by a couple good-looking goats here. For the viewers, obviously you can see which one's a little bit more dandy than the other, but for those listening, we've got two great goats. One of them, I would say, is the jumbo.
Yep, easily. That's a shooter, no doubter,
every day of the week.
Time. Yep.
So before we get into the stories and how things went down, and we hear about what you guys learned and what you guys did, for the listeners out there, you're probably going to hear some background noise. As much as we don't like it, our facility is growing and the company's growing. It's all good things.
That part.
Yeah, we like that part for sure. It's just inconvenient when they're doing some building and some reno right next door here. So if you hear any hammering, drilling, curse words, that kind of stuff, there's just some construction going on.
And I'll do my best to try and take it out if possible. So hopefully you won't hear any at all.
Not at all. Right. So where should we start now? We should probably start chronological, I suppose.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, the first one in that chronological order happens to be the jumbo. What'd you call him earlier, Judd? The hula whopper.
Oh, the hula whopper. Yeah. I couldn't remember what I said. Yeah, that's a hula whopper.
Yeah. All right. So we had 4 antelope hunts teed up for you guys. And the first one, Ryan, take us through time of year, where you're at, what you're shooting, and how this went down. Because we're looking at a 80-inch or bigger goat here.
Yeah.
So how'd this go down?
So as we discussed in our preseason pronghorn episode, we were talking about a group of us guys going out to Utah. This is kind of on an industry deal. We were fortunate enough to be able to go to this ranch in Utah. And we had 6 guys with antelope tags. So we were in a pretty special place. I mean, looking back on it now, I appreciate it even more than when I was there. But so we had 3 pairs of guys, 2, 2, and 2, and we got side by sides and the whole works. And this is Labor Day weekend.
Okay, early season, early.
Right at September 1st. It was first day of the season. We got there the night before, checked our rifles at 200-300 yards, just make sure everybody was confident with that. I'm shooting my 6.5 Creedmoor with Precision Hunter 143s.
We've mentioned it many times. Probably one of my favorite utilitarian medium-sized game rifles right there. You really built a nice one, but sorry to go ahead.
And so just shoot steel at 200-300 yards. Yep, good to go. Confident there. Guys were saying be ready to take a shot out to 400 yards, sitting, kneeling in a realistic hunting scenario. So and I talked about that before. We did some preparation when we're practicing doing those types of shooting scenarios. So I was feeling good, feeling ready. Then we head out pretty early in the morning on the first day. And those guys there have scouted the area. They know what bucks are in the area. Okay, we got some good ones in a group over here, and they kind of know what they're looking for. So the first thing in the morning, we're going to these spots. Okay, he'd seen this buck here 3 weeks prior or whatever it was. And we glass, and right away, first light, we're seeing antelope that morning. It's like, okay, there's a lot of antelope around here. Sun's barely cresting up on the horizon, and we're seeing bucks. They're not shooter bucks for there, so those maybe tomorrow we'll look at those. And this is we had 2 days to hunt basically. So they're saying, there's some bucks over there, but we're not going to go after them yet. It's first day. If we need to, we'll go after them the next day. And we're talking 70-inch antelope probably.
Wow. Hard to pass those up.
Walk past those,
especially with all of our histories antelope hunting.
Yeah.
But there's this one buck that we were looking for. and they had him named. It was Casanova was his name.
Oh, because he had all the ladies, huh?
Yeah, I guess. But no, after looking back, you could see why. So we find some bucks, blah blah blah. Not much there. Okay, let's go back and move to the next spot. Well, we're on our way back to the rig, the side by side, walking this ridge line, and we just happened to look back. Me and Randy, another engineer here, look back and we see some cows down this valley by a pond, and Randy's like, "No, I think there's some antelope there too." I'm like, "Are you sure?" Look back. Oh yeah, those are some goats down there. I think they're just does though. They're probably, I don't know, 900,000 yards away.
Mm.
And then so we talked to Pepper, our guide, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there's some goats down there." Like, "Oh yeah, there's a buck down there." Let's look. So he pulls out the spotter, worth getting out the spotter for. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's a decent buck." Couple seconds. "Oh wait, that's a really good buck actually." "I think that's my buck. I think we should go kill him." I'm like, "Oh, all right,
Game on."
Let's do it. So yeah, we they just work up this valley out of our field of view. So we just cut distance, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile maybe, get to where we think they had went up this valley, this low spot. We get up a hillside and we cross the fence, crawling up the grass. Okay, yeah, we think they're down here. And sure enough, we start seeing the group of does, and they saw us.
Sure they did.
So
Amazing.
well, you can tell. I can tell based on my public land history with antelope. I don't think I'd have got that far if those were public land antelope. Like those does, they probably would have boogered already. But they're
skittish, but not flighty.
They know that we're there and they're paying attention. But yeah, they're not taking off. And so that buck is comfortable as long as those does are comfortable. And they tolerate us. I mean, we're crawling slow and the grass is fairly tall. Getting to a spot where I think those does are like 350 yards away or something. They're up on the hillside past us. And that buck was in the back of the group, probably 10, 12 does. And I couldn't see him. Pepper saw him because he's to my right. I couldn't see him. Like I got no sight here. He's in the grass. Okay, I could pick up high enough. Okay, I can see his horns. And yeah, I just set up. I'm like, okay, as far as I can go. Otherwise, those does are probably going to booger out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I get set on a tripod and sitting high enough to get above this grass. I think I was ready for 300-yard shot or something. I think I had dialed.
Should be about a mil.
Yeah, whatever it was. I got the two stories. The later story here is on my mind most recently, so I got to think back to what.
Because you've hunted so many antelope that you got to get your story straight here.
But anyway, he gets to. Okay, he walks out. He's wide open. I'm like, all right, I can take a shot. And he looks up at us. He looks away, and I squeeze it off, and then instantly I hear impact, just whop, just smoked
that
him.
143 ELDX, even at that lower velocity, just wallops.
Yeah, because muzzle velocity with my gun is like 25, 60.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going
short barrel on there, right?
20-inch barrel.
20-inch
with factory ammo. It's going slower. So anyway, I see the impact. I got on the gun quick enough. I see his initial reaction. He just stiffens his whole front side up and just stands straight back on his rear legs. It was so cool. Like, oh yeah, I smoked him. He's done.
Rears up like a horse.
Yeah, he did. It looked like his back was almost vertical. He probably wasn't, but in my head, that's what I remember seeing. And he just stood there. It seemed like forever, and probably a few seconds. But he came back down and kind of stumbled a bit and did it again. Came back off his front legs and reared up on his back legs again. And I reload another time. Like, okay, maybe I shot him high shoulder and missed something. Just the doubt initially, unless I didn't see him drop right away. So that was my thought. But he comes back down, stumbles, and
but he was dead on 2 feet the whole
he was
time.
Toast, but he falls down and he actually lays down with his head up alert for longer than I expected he would. But it was 10 seconds and he was dead.
Yeah.
And he was
when you're
head down and belly over.
Things happen at that rate of speed. Your mind processes
Sure.
information. It feels like an eternity.
So yeah, the shot ended up being 290 yards, I think. So yeah, we
And what position were you in when you shot it?
sitting.
Sitting.
on my butt, tripod in the grass.
Perfect.
Like clamped into the tripod?
No,
or-
just like a sandbag on top of a
Okay.
little
Yep.
fold-out tripod.
All the reason to practice those positions. I mean, you can get really stable in a position like that when you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have a prone shot. Everybody would, but the grass out there is actually fairly good
not
shape
overgrazed.
compared to here. It's been really dry, but out there they had been getting a few good rains here just prior to when we got there, and the grass still was growing. But yeah, you weren't going to get a prone shot unless you had a nice rocky edge or something you could set up on. So yeah, he was dead there, and we went and
Did you know he was this good when you
No.
walked up there?
no.
No. You just walked up
Yeah,
and
he
he's just
walked in
ground
like,
growth.
Holy smokes! Yeah, that's heavy. But yeah, so no, I didn't really pay attention. As long as he said it's good enough goat to shoot, I didn't. Okay, I'm shooting him if I can.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then you get up on him when he's down. Like, oh yeah, holy smokes!
That's a good goat.
By far the biggest goat I've ever seen.
Do you know his
alone.
measurements to describe for the listeners? How long is he, I
I
guess?
think he just under 15, like 14 and a half and 14 and 7/8 on main beam length. His right prong just under 6 inches here, and his left one's a 1/4 inch smaller, like
Oh.
5 7/8 and 5 5/8.
Yeah, and his cutter's cut up there. I mean, they're not low at all. They got a good shape to them.
Yeah, I don't remember his mass measurements. Bottom two mass measurements were
They look like they're approaching 7 or better.
6+. Yeah, they're probably. I think they were under 7. I don't.
Either way,
Yeah,
it's a
right.
dandy goat, regardless of score. Cool experience, great shot, and that
Yeah.
practice that you were doing. We talked about it in episode 32. Like we were talking about it in the podcast about getting your rifles
Your
ready.
hunting rifle ready.
Is practicing in those positions, getting comfortable, shooting from places that are uncomfortable, and it obviously paid off for you,
Yeah.
big time.
I want to know about Engineer Randy. He's a
Little Randy man.
energetic, feel good guy. Him watching this go down. What
So
was,
he was
what
actually
was his reaction?
Oh, he was probably more jacked up than I was.
Probably sounded like Stan Potts.
Because he was behind us the whole time. We were in the approach, the stalk. That last approach was in a position where he was safe to be behind us without really causing much more pressure on those antelope. So he was right behind us basically on our hip the whole way up there. And this was a few hundred yards. We crawled up there, and a funny story. We were on that last approach. It's like we're trying to be dead silent and stuff, and Randy's phone goes off. Ding!
Oh man! All right, that's
funny.
lowbrow. Come on now, it's
And we're like,
hunting 101. You got to silence the
Yeah.
phone
Well,
now.
Yeah,
I'm like, well, yeah,
I
luckily
can
it
only
didn't hurt
imagine
anything.
hunting with Randy, what that would be like.
And he was all worried about it, but yeah, it turned out to be
Inconsequential.
inconsequential.
So
But
talk about that a little bit, though. I'm more curious about, you went there with a group of guys from
Yeah.
Hornady that you work with every day. And, a handful of guys hunt together and do things together. But this was a group of just a bunch of engineers that see each other every day, maybe for the first time doing something like this together. So what was that like, getting to know everybody closer?
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of different. Like you work with the same group of guys in the office every day, but when you get outside the office,
True colors.
true characters come out. It was kind of nice. I think we were with a good group of guys. I enjoyed it. And Randy, he's a great guy. You guys know him, but
Yeah, a good engineer.
he's a great guy, great engineer, great at what he does. I respect the heck out of him. And so I offer him, hey, you choose who's shooting first here, because it was up to us. Nobody else cared. It was me and him.
Yeah.
Like who's up to bat first in the morning. And I was like, you want to go first? You go first. You decide, Randy. And he just insisted I go first.
Yeah, well, he
let me
was,
go first. So
A career Army officer, and that's an officer move right there.
So yeah, that by just that, then we happened to go for the top hit list buck that morning, and just I happened to be up to bat. So that by no merit of mine, got to shoot this giant buck that just happened to be in the right situation.
There's a saying that I was with an outfit up in Canada here recently. Check out the Moose Mania episode, and the guide said there's going to be a lot of moose get spanked this fall. We just got to make sure that we have the paddle. And that antelope stepped up to get spanked, and You had the paddle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's huge. And it's like one of those things, too, antelope we talked about in the earlier episode. They're so weird and unique for us specifically, where we don't live around them. We have to drive to get into their area. And so I could probably imagine seeing this go and like, okay, yeah, it looks nice, but without like having another buck right there to compare it
sure,
to, it's like,
Sure.
I don't know, it's an antelope. I don't really know. So
Looks
and then
good.
walking up and seeing that freak, yeah, I bet that was pretty awesome.
And I don't have a ton of, just in this season, my experience field judging antelope, kind of getting an idea of what their score would be or the characteristics based on certain things compared to other bucks on the hoof has grown immensely. And the guy we were with in Utah helped me do that a lot because
He looks over all of them.
he's looked at thousands and thousands of antelope for a long time, and his pronghorn's his thing. It's his passion. He loves it.
And when he says that's a shooter,
He says that's a good buck. It's a good buck.
Yeah.
And then after that, we go to look for a buck for Randy. Okay, we spot some, and that's a 71, 72-inch buck, and we pass. We don't even go for it after him. Like that just tells you the type of place you're at and the type of herd management they have in place there. And then, yeah, we killed 6 bucks. That group of guys killed 6 bucks that one day.
in 6 shots.
6 shots, 1 shot, 1 kill, 6 times in one day. So that tells you a lot about what kind of place you're at.
What a special place. What a special buck. I know it's hard to see probably for the viewer, but there's so much character going on. There's little stickers off the backside of this thing, and just a dang cool buck.
And your guide's name was Pepper?
Yes.
And what was his main profession?
He was an orthopedic surgeon, a doctor.
Oh, a doctor.
per se.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
He was a Dr. Pepper. Oh, man.
But a good guy.
He had never heard that joke before.
No,
likely
never.
not.
He-
His name's legitimately Pepper?
yes.
Oh, man, that's too bad.
He's a great guy.
I'm sure he is,
He
but
chose to be a doctor.
I was going to say, you went into that. You did 7 years of medical school knowing that you're going to be called Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
He's got thick skin and a good sense of humor, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. And what a cool story. What a cool buck, and just an awesome opportunity.
Definitely.
Yeah, and to be able to have that opportunity, knowing that it's going to increase your field competency in looking for a mature animal and being able to gauge a mature animal, and it probably helped a little bit with the psyche in how do you pass it. How do you pass bucks like that to get to a buck like this, and that's difficult, I think, for all of us to pass something good to look for something great. There's a lot of us right there where I can't pass something good because I want something great. That's awesome. So let's shift gears then from Utah to Nebraska. And for the listeners out there to remember episode 32, this is the unit that Judd's got all the experience in. Couldn't choke down a cheeseburger. Thirsty.
Ran out of water.
Yeah, like he was in the Sahara, and killed a stud buck, cool buck. And you guys were back out there a few years later. Let's hear how that all went down.
Well,
Because this was, again, completely independent of the company. This is just 2 hunters out there on the public land grinding it out with everybody else.
yes. So we opening of the season was a Saturday, and we took off on a Friday, mid-morning. 5-hour drive to get there, I would say, from where we were at.
Yep.
So off to the northwest corner of Nebraska, we'll just say that. And we got to the area, had an honorary cheeseburger on the way there. I forgot about that one.
Good deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have a cheeseburger every time I go antelope hunting now.
I think we should.
Yeah, just tradition.
It's tradition. You don't mess with tradition.
Yeah.
Yep. So we get to the area and kind of immediately start seeing antelope. Kind of a few antelope per public spot. Now, this is not a big ranch
Contiguous, yeah.
where it's contiguous, but each spot or even private parcel seem to have an antelope on it. Some of them okay-ish. I'm still not very good, and I've hunted a lot of antelope this year about field judging them. But we wanted to check out Judd's spot, so Ryan was marking goats as we were driving by him, so we can always come back.
Yep.
Because we kind of hit went by all these places on the way to the end of Nebraska and then came back.
Okay,
a
so
little
just
bit.
marking them on your hunt map of
Yeah.
where they're at. Okay.
Yep.
Yep. So we checked Judd's spot out, and it's great, just like as you described. That road
Was
is
the sign
totally,
still there?
Yep, that
As you
road is totally
Turned in
legal to
Judd's
drive.
spot. That
Yeah.
sign was still there.
Yep,
It staked right into the ground.
Judd was here. WUZ.
Yeah, and it's got a tick mark because he killed one goat. So
Yeah.
every time you go back, you have to put a notch in the post.
So it's pretty cool. Where that road stopped and you can't drive anymore. I don't think you can see that from the road. So that's pretty nice.
Mhm.
Had to go through a gate. I mean, you had to do a little effort to go mess with us. But we decided to pull the glass out, and we were on the way to just hit this watering hole or cow water or
Tank,
tie
yeah.
or tank.
Oh,
Tank is the word.
Was
I'm
it
looking
like a
for.
solar well or something?
Nope. I don't know how they got water. They must have brought
No.
water out to it.
That one was bone dry anyway.
Bone dry. Yeah, but anyway,
It didn't bring water.
on the way to get there, and we spot an antelope, a bunch of does, and then we kind of look over to the left, kind of like you do with antelope. Look
Mhm.
on the one side or the other of the does, and there's a buck right there.
Now, real quick, it's early in the year. Is the grass still pretty green out there?
Not at all.
Not at all. I was going to say
Mown,
because
Dry.
you got those white butts; they stand out. But when the grass turns,
And
they all
short.
kind of look the same. Yeah.
Yep.
I think I kept using the adjective crispy
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was
Crunch.
dry
Mm.
out there.
Okay.
It was dry.
You
All right.
Be careful where you park.
Yep.
Park in the real short stuff, which wasn't hard to find.
So there he is.
There he is, and we're like, oh, crap. And I try to get some footage of him. They take off down the valley. Like, okay, we kind of know where they're going, we think. Checked out your other camping spot suggestion. Beautiful little place, little vista. You could look down across the valley. But elected to keep going. Still checking out all the public spots.
Because you're
This is
there a
still-
day early.
Yeah, this
Yep.
is still Friday the night,
No, we're
night
not
before.
hunting yet.
Yeah, you're just
No guns,
Browsing.
no weapons. We're just glassing.
Trying to find a place to hunt the next morning.
Mhm.
And then we go, I think, a spot over north and to the west, and like just immediately turn on the road. Publix to our right, a little bit of Publix to our left, and we're just seeing goat, 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 goat. We're like, oh, this is pretty good.
It's pretty not
so
bad.
here's an option. And then there was a road to get to a watering tank. We'll keep that in the back of our mind. Go check out one more spot. Still see a few more antelope. So we're seeing
Mission
goats,
accomplished, yeah.
lots of them. But we felt like where we saw all those goats, like quite a few of them, just right off the road on a public piece. We'll camp there and try it in the morning.
We felt that spot had a little more density of
A little more
antelope living
activity.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds
Just
like there was
throw 'em.
enough little pieces of public that if you mess something up, you could just pop over to the next one or
Yep.
something.
Yep.
And they're not exactly small pieces of public either. So it would take a lot to booger them up real bad,
Okay.
I feel. Got out the propane grill, 1
Mhm.
pound propane right off the tailgate, and had sorry, Judd, no cheeseburgers, but jalapeno cheddar Polish dogs.
Oh,
Spicy,
sounds good.
sweet and spicy mustard, right?
Yeah,
That sounds like a good meal while you're
I
out
had
there.
to have the sweet and spicy mustard.
That was his
Gotta have it.
request, and then we had it. Oh, also had pickled herring, pickled okra. I mean, just the typical dude hunting
Yeah.
cooler.
Well, I have to jump in here because the day before you guys left for the hunt, Preston's lunch consisted of pickled Polish sausage, pickled eggs, and pickled carrots.
Spicy pickled carrots.
And they're delicious.
delightful.
I
had
had
some today at the Mexican joint downtown.
It's delicious as well. Yeah. All right. So that's the food
Well,
scenario.
That's for the cramps, right? Don't you got to chug the pickled juice? for
that's
the-
why I do it.
Polish
Yeah.
Gatorade.
Yeah, there you go.
Put it down.
That's what he was on.
So we call it in our house.
Okay, so we set up tents. We each have our own tent. We sleep the night. I want to do a little filming because we are doing. Ryan's doing a little Black Ops stuff here with a new product, and I do a little bit of filming right away in the morning when the sun hasn't come quite up yet. You know,
Oh
really
yeah.
good
Set
camera
the
light.
mood.
And then we head for the biggest hill that was out there, which really wasn't that big. It's kind of surprising. I'd been to that part of the state, and if you go just a little bit south there's some hills.
Yeah, the buttes get a lot more aggressive.
For
lot more
people that say
topography.
Nebraska's just flat, it's not true.
Well, it
There's
is on
parts of it,
I-80.
yeah. But this place had more rolling hills.
Okay.
And we found one that was a little tall, so I said, we better climb that. You said we better climb that. And I said, I agree. And we got the glass out. And it probably took 5 minutes or so before we saw our first goat. And I was a little bummed Because if you're looking through glass for 5 minutes and not seeing anything, that's not
And
very
we're
good.
looking a long ways too out there.
Yeah, so
miles, several.
I was a little bit worried, but eventually we see an antelope, and he's chasing a little buck, and he's a little buck himself, and they're at 500 yards, and said first day, and absolutely no interest.
Just an antelope.
It's just an
They were
antelope.
pretty
To
small.
quote Mr. Jarzynka
They were
here.
small, bigger than the one I eventually ended up shooting. No spoiler alert there.
Okay.
But at the time, we were still pretty optimistic about what the rest of the day might bring.
Well, especially because the next antelope we saw happened to be 1,200 yards away, and with the naked eye, you're like, that's a buck right there.
Yeah.
He's a lot better.
So, I mean, from our vantage point, he was on this backside of a rolling hill, and we could just walk on this other side of the rolling hill
Easy
right
day.
to him.
Looked
didn't-
to be that way.
Really take
Looking,
hindsight, we probably should have taken a range of him
Yep.
and been able to range the hill that we were on looking
Oh,
back.
yeah, there's no real features you could have said he's this far from that set of rocks or anything. There's
Mhm.
really nothing. But we should have done something better of trying to figure out, once we get down that way, how close are we to where that group of antelope was. 'Cause
So
Yeah.
we can pop over the hill.
Yeah.
we end up
Use-
getting down there and
Like draw a line in Onyx, or if you're using base maps, they have that feature where you can, shoot an azimuth, and it'll,
Yeah.
you can pick a range and then drop a pin right there, so you have like a destination that you're headed to.
I think our
Well,
excitement got the
hindsight's
better of
20/20.
us.
Yeah.
We're like, oh yeah, easy stock, let's go. We
See
load
ya.
up our scopes and head down the hill, and we're off.
Mhm.
And Preston sees another buck with a doe
On
across this valley that we're walking through on
other
the
side.
further way, on the farther side. We just act like we don't notice him, and maybe he won't notice us, and he kind of stays. This is 800 yards away or something.
Yeah.
It's not like we were close to him, but
But they can see you just
Oh, yeah.
the same.
they, definitely.
But they didn't booger off
They didn't bugger
because
off.
we walked in a different direction.
We get down to where I thought, okay, I think we're far enough now. I think that group of antelope's got to be close. So let me crawl to the top of this hill and just peek over and see where we're at. Well, those hills are so wide and flat at the top and so gradual. I start crawling and I can't see the other side. I keep crawling, can't see. I'm just plateaued out.
Mm-hmm.
I eventually see a doe, and I only see one doe, and this was a fairly big group I was looking for. I'm like, oh, maybe they're still farther down. Go up a little more. Okay, I don't want to booger this doe up because she's going to see me. And so we back out and go down further. And next thing you know, well, I realized we were way past them. We passed them, and then get into a position where we can kind of make a stalk on them. And I think I got to 400 yards and saw me or
Yeah.
saw us, and they boogered.
And it's a muzzleloader, mind you guys. So
Muzzleloader hunt.
Got to reiterate that. So you 400 yards with the Creedmoor or something have been a non-issue, but
Yeah.
little limited here.
Yeah, I wasn't even in a position to start even thinking to set it for a shot. But I was like trying to see, oh yeah, the buck's in there. I see the buck. And then, oh yeah, he saw me too. And didn't take long after that. They're a mile away in no time.
I kind of saw that coming. So he was up there doing his thing. And while at some point, I don't know if you noticed, I just backed off and I was going to go back around the hill for in case when they buggered over, maybe I could get a shot too. But they buggered quicker than we anticipated.
As per pressured antelope will do.
Keep in mind, I guess we have seen other vehicles in the area at this point, public land.
Yeah.
No blaze orange though.
So just
So archery hunters.
Archery hunters, yeah.
and archery hunters don't have to wear orange during muzzleloader season.
Nope.
Mm.
Correct.
So
I suppose it's only during rifle. So if it
Yeah.
was the rifle season open, they would have had to wear orange.
Yep.
Okay.
So they really only go one rolling hill over, and that's probably 800 yards, 1,000 yards
Yeah.
maybe. So we kind of go after them. That one buck, that big buck out of that group stole that lone buck's only doe too. So now he's all by
So
himself.
he was
standing
Mr.
there.
Casanova.
Yeah, he's just standing there a little bit upset. I said, Ryan, why don't you go see if you can find that big one, and I'll try and go get that smaller one that just got his lady stolen and is all by himself sad. But I mean, the antelope just have such great eyesight, and in a pressured area like this, they ran away quickly.
Yep.
And with a muzzleloader, you do have to get relatively close. So
Sure.
kind of gave up on those.
Well, in Nebraska, if you buy an antelope permit with archery equipment, you get to hunt the whole state for antelope. And so, yeah, the people that come to Nebraska looking for goats, this unit in particular has, huge masses of public land where some of the other units don't. And yeah, during archery season, those goats get stirred up quite a bit, and they get weary and they get keen on movement, and they're not okay with it.
Yep. So we kind of head back for the truck. Did see another antelope. He probably saw us too, about 400 yards. So we're kind of like taking turns. Who's going to shoot?
Mhm.
I feel. And this one was out of reach for you anyway, I feel. But when he eventually got settled down, this is after you waved a game bag at him.
Yeah, we did try the white.
So the old
white flag trick.
white flag trick, it made him actually run away from us.
Okay. Yeah.
Noted. Yeah, it's like Preston's. You got something white? These game bags. Yeah. I pull it out. I barely get it up, and he just
He's out of here.
180 and turns around and heads back. He was gone.
Maybe on a less pressured animal where they're a little more relaxed or something. Well, Judd's got the hat. You got the antelope headgear.
I wouldn't take that on when there's gun season, though.
Yeah,
but,
no kidding.
well, that was my thought, why I got that thing, and I've yet to have the opportunity to use it. But you get busted cresting those long hills, so it's like maybe it wouldn't work perfectly, but maybe it'd make them stop and think for a minute, or whatever, enough to let you have
even
a shot.
If it worked a quarter of the time, that's huge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I pulled up on this antelope. Somehow he stopped on the road, like the one road there, and I just didn't feel comfortable with the shot.
Yeah.
At that point,
100%.
he's 600 yards. I'm holding an antelope off of him with probably a 7 or 8 mile an hour wind.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, I'm running a smokeless,
Right.
not an inline.
And you've got
using Ford off.
Of
Well,
course.
using
the BC
BC
side.
version, yeah.
using a
Yep.
ballistic calculator and a reticle where you're not just holding an antelope. I'm holding
Oh,
this
yeah.
many minutes of angle or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
It was like 5 minutes or so, and I didn't feel that comfortable holding off of him, and he was on the road.
Yeah,
How
that's
weird
low
would that
brow.
be?
Yeah, it's not right.
But it was early in the morning. We did 5 point some miles in that first 2 hours, and then this
Got into
piece-
some action though.
Oh, absolutely. A little distraught at that point. We kind of figured out these antelope are weary.
Yeah.
But this public piece had a road you could drive into on this northern half, so we drive it the whole way. Did not see an antelope. I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Wah,
But we got to
wah.
the very end, and we did finally see a doe, and then another doe, and then there is a buck over there. I think there's probably a group of 8 or 9 does.
Yep.
Watched some of them bed down in this little draw, and actually had some green in it. There's actually some
good
contour
vegetation. Yeah.
and something for them to eat. So we make a plan to stalk them. I went ahead and slammed my thumb in the truck door. It still doesn't close right, folks.
Yeah. Broke the darn door.
Yeah. But yeah, didn't swear or nothing. Just said,
Yeah, just did some teeth grinding.
I said,
Yeah.
Ryan, you go after him. But anyway, I collected myself, and we were going to go do this stalk, right? So we get to 100 yards, 150 yards away from the truck. Said, I think we're where we need to be for this contour line. Let's go ahead and peek. And we peek, and there's no antelope there.
They're gone.
I'm like,
Vanished.
how is this possible? We haven't gained any ground on them whatsoever. They should not have been able to see us at all. And we look over, there they are running in South Dakota.
Yeah.
So a little rough. Distraught. We turn around.
At least you didn't make it too far.
Yeah, it didn't make it too far at all. Stalk 2 does, thinking maybe there'd be a buck with them. There's some rut activity for sure going on at this point. No buck with those does. And then a little bit further, and we literally see a buck, and he scares from 20 yards off of the road that we just drove on. So either he appeared out of nowhere, or we drove right by him the first time. He gets out there about 440 yards, I believe. I'm on him. I go to reach for my phone, and it's charging in the truck.
Oh, you gotta have your drop numbers.
So I said, Ryan, can you go get it? He had my file on his phone if we would have remembered it.
I did. I had it loaded in my
So
app.
he does grab it. The antelope moves out a little bit. He's at 540 yards. Solid as a rock. Proned
Prone.
out. keep in mind, guys, I'm shooting a bullet with a BC of a .4 at 2,650 feet per second. So this is like almost a 308.
Yeah, almost like shooting a 308 Winchester.
So I feel confident. I'd taken it out way further than that practicing beforehand. It's calling for 12 and a half minutes. The scope I'm running at the time, no longer anymore, is a half-minute adjustable turret. So in my mind, I see 12, and I go 2. Because on every other scope in the world, it's a quarter minute.
Yeah.
So I thought I just dialed to 12 and a half. I actually dialed to 13, and I shoot right over his back.
Wow. That hurts. Case in point,
Yeah.
right there. You never rise to the occasion. You only fall back to your highest level of training.
Yep.
And when your muscle memory says a quarter minute click or a tenth of a mil click, and it's not, you make a silly mistake.
So
Costly.
it's not the scope's fault. It's 100% my fault.
It's a nut behind the bolt. Usually is.
But then we say, well, we've kind of played this piece out, I feel, and we head to Judd's place.
Yep.
Judd's little,
Did you sign
little
the book?
private piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, we signed the guest list.
Yeah.
He'll see you later. I don't know. Why don't you tell him how that went down? That's kind of turned out to be your place.
So we, on the south edge of this public, there was a set of rolling hills, and you couldn't quite see behind each one of those. I wanted to turn over every stone on that little side. I'm like, maybe we'll get lucky and give me a chip shot. I'll walk over one of these hills, and there'll be a group bedded here. So I tell Preston, I'm going to walk over each one of these hills and I'm going to walk a little further, see if I can see any hunkered down back here. So he sets up and starts glassing right off the bat. I eventually walk around these hills. There's nothing there. Set up, start glassing again, and we find a buck with a doe and a fawn on private, just in the corner of private, though, right next to public. They're just meandering around aimlessly, seemingly, but just doing antelope stuff.
Doe didn't seem to be real interested in the buck, but the buck seemed real interested in the doe.
Yeah. And eventually, I mean, I felt like it was half an hour or
15,
something.
20 minutes at least.
That buck just starts heading west, jumps the fence, and heads into public. Me not knowing at the time there was another buck over there, but Preston already saw that. I never saw this other buck on public. So he runs out there and then what happened next?
He chases the little buck probably half the distance of that valley away, and then heads back to his does. And that other buck just stands there like, I don't know if he was distraught or just needed to catch his
Somebody
wind
kicked
or
his dog.
something.
Yeah,
That's when I finally realized that, because the whole time I was just watching that first buck that came off of private. I was watching him through my spotter, kind of had tunnel vision on him, getting some video and stuff, and we actually had service, and I was texting Preston, what should we do? Like, my initial thought was I'm heading back in here. I'm hoofing it, and I'm putting on a few miles, and we're going to get back here, and we're going to spend the rest of the day back in here.
I kind of said nah.
And he kind of said no, and he said that other buck seems like you make a play on him. He's been standing there for a good 30 minutes. I'm like, other buck? Oh, when I pan the scope over, I'm like, oh, okay, there's another buck standing here, and
and I had no problem going back there. For, I guess, to describe it, to get across this wasteland valley where, like, I'm glassing this whole valley and I don't see anything except for what's happening right in front of us. But I'm looking and there's nothing. Like, there's nothing. So we have to get past all of this to probably get into the good stuff. And at this point, it's noon, right? I said, if we're going to do this, let's hydrate up tonight and let's
eat
make
a couple more
day of
kielbasa dogs.
Because it's
Zebra
going to
cakes.
take some water and a cheeseburger to
At least.
get there and back.
And I'm a bigger guy, so it might take 2 cheeseburgers and maybe even more water.
2 waters.
So I kind of said, let's do that tomorrow. And he said, that's fine. I said, but there's this other buck here. I didn't know if he had seen it at this point. He's just been standing there. I think there's a way to do it. I think there's a cut in front of me. Just come to me, and you'll see the cut and tell him about the stock, I guess.
Yeah, so I thought, all right, Lily, let's go for it. And I pack up my stuff, get around the backside of those hills that I walked in on. And yeah, there's like this little ditch that just happened to run.
When I say cut, I would say shallow valley.
Yeah, it was
a better sense of it.
It was pretty shallow, but it was just enough there.
Elongated depression.
There you go.
The hills on the sides are just enough that I could gain some ground out of view of that buck. But yeah, it kind of seemed like it ran straight north away from you, the hill you were sitting on. So I dump my pack and I start going. A lot of low walking, some of it crawling, depending on the hills on the sides of that little ditch. But I eventually get to, there's a fence in that pasture, and I could crawl right through the bottom strand of that fence because it was in that ditch. And then the hill right at the end of that, it was like basically like a path straight north, roughly. And then it hits a wall, and then that's a little knob. And if I would have kept following that ditch to the right, I was in open view of that buck.
Okay.
Because I peeked out, and I could start to see him. If I get out in the open here, I'm still too far out of the game for me to take a shot.
Yeah.
300 yards was my mark. That was with the setup I had, the bolt I was using. That was the cutoff, the scope, just the whole system capabilities in my head was 300 yards. That's my cutoff. I need to get to 300.
And that's just a standard inline,
standard
break
inline,
action,
break up and break action muzzleloader.
BDC
209
reticle.
BDC reticle.
Mm-hmm.
2.5 to 10. So yeah, I'm like, all right, this is the hill I gotta make my stock up. If I can gain distance here, this is where I gotta make my play. Otherwise, he's gonna be gone. And as I'm doing that, I crawl up on my belly, and I'm as low to the ground as I can get because the grass is like 8 inches, maybe. So I just try to get in line with him, and now he looked like he had been making his way towards me slightly.
I'm watching all this in the glass, and most of the time I'm looking at the buck, and then I'm panning over to Ryan, and eventually the paths meet, and I'm watching this whole thing unfold in the binoculars.
You're thinking this is going to be a home run.
Well, I'd done some ranging, and I said, where you said that's as far as I can go, I was hoping there was a little bit more there because it was still going to be a pretty far shot. I think I ranged it at like 350 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was hoping there's a little bit more you could get. But at some point during this, the buck sees you.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're a little bit curious, these antelope, and he actually comes towards Ryan. So he's working his way. I'm like,
should have tried the white flag.
But I had
deal.
A low enough profile. My bipod's out as about as high as I can get him, get above that grass. Luckily, I had that taller bipod. But so my profile is just what is my head and my shoulders, probably a little bit of my torso up. It's not like I was out there walking around.
Mm-hmm. And so you're laying on the the prone behind the gun.
Yep. And I inch forward 8-10 inches a foot at a time. I'm just inching forward, moving my gun with my right hand, and I'm crawling with my left. And I'm just hoping he's still gaining on me a little bit. And he get to a point where it looks like, okay, he's used up all the curiosity he's going to use.
Yeah, and now he's paralleling you. He's not getting
maybe
closer.
Trying to get the wind or something.
Yeah, he's just skirting.
So I range, I think,
319, I think.
I was thinking the first range I got, I don't know, 350, something like that. And then, I get to a spot where, okay, it's like, 315, 320, whatever it was, 319, I don't remember what I said. But he was straight on me. All I could see was his head and his neck, his chest.
Yeah, and his patience was used up. You could tell
at
that point.
He's got me pegged, and, he's 315 yards away. And there was a decent crosswind at that time. Looking back, so I didn't take the shot. I wasn't comfortable with the shot. I got the hammer pulled back, my fingers on the trigger. Kept telling myself in my head, if he turns at all and pauses, I'm sending one. But after a few seconds, he turns and takes off right away and doesn't hesitate.
Typical antelope
in the slightest. But then he's not running, but he's trotting off, and a trot for an antelope's fast enough that I just wait for him to get behind the hill that I'm on the bottom edge of this hill, and it kind of slopes up to my left, so I wait for him to get out of sight, and I get up, and I'm sprinting up to the edge of that hill, thinking maybe he just hooks around and he'll stop again, but I get up there, and he's still 420, 450 yards away and heading out, so that was the end of that game.
Cool stock, sounds like.
And it was action-packed for sure.
And that drug out for a while, wasted a lot of the afternoon, and then, to come up short in the end, I was frustrated. I'm winded. My heart was pounding.
We'd come up short 3 times at that point.
Dang.
And that's kind of antelope hunting.
Well, looking back, though, like you say, that's kind of antelope hunting. You had all that action in a morning and half of an afternoon.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about antelope is, deer, especially this time of year, October, if you're archery hunting them, you're waiting for the last hour and a half, hour of daylight.
Yeah.
And I don't know, with antelope, you're just going all day.
You can see them all day.
It was action-packed all day. Yeah, that's pretty remarkable.
But that's not how we felt.
Yeah. Well, when you're in it and getting your butt kicked, but looking back.
So at this point, you're feeling kind of dejected. Kind of
Yeah.
like, gosh darn, it's been a long day.
It was at this point, it was probably before this, but at this point we solidified any buck. We're shooting any
Yep.
buck.
Doesn't
Okay.
matter anymore.
Even for what we were seeing, it's like we're not,
Yeah.
we have no room here to be picky.
We don't have the time, and maybe the viewers and listeners need to know this too. We had 2 days, and
Saturday
if we
and
went
Sunday.
if we went the whole day Sunday, it was going to be a late night and an
Yeah.
early morning.
Yeah, Monday morning
Monday
at
going to
work
work.
would have been tough.
Yep.
We both have families and little kids, and that whole story,
Yeah.
taking time off, heading 6 hours away from home, it's just logistically
Right.
just brings its own set of
And
challenges.
we didn't
So
want,
we didn't want to make another trip back out there. We'd love to get it done on that weekend.
not that we wouldn't love to make another trip out there. It's just
Difficult.
impractical.
You gotta choose where you're gonna allocate your time resources. But luckily for us, the turntables turn eventually.
Well, so after Judd's spot, we decided we'd go there the next morning, hydrated, and we'd hoof it to the back.
What'd you guys have for dinner?
For lunch?
Or for lunch? Yeah, sorry.
Nothing.
We didn't.
This food's a very
Oatmeal cream pies,
Cliff Bar.
Cliff Bar.
all right. I don't know. That's a very important part of a hunt for me. Take it very
Yeah,
serious.
I feel like we just snacked during the day and then
Yeah,
had
'cause
a
we
nice
were-
supper.
Truck
We were in
burritos,
action,
yeah.
just happened to be in action throughout those times. It just never.
Okay. All right.
So I said, well, there was some walk-in right when we got into our unit. I want to check it out. There was already goats there, but it's on the other side of the unit. So we get in the truck and we're driving there. I didn't realize at the time how far away it was, but we there's another public piece that you could drive on these roads through. We said, well, we might as well.
When in Rome?
So, again, not realizing how long that road would take. I mean, we'd probably driving it for 45 minutes. Probably took an hour to get through that whole giant pasture. But 45 minutes through, maybe 3/4 of the way through, we finally see an antelope. Like the whole time, we did not see an antelope.
Wolf.
So we finally saw one. And I said, Ryan, I'm shooting. I don't care what it is. Don't care if it's a doe. At this point, I felt like we needed to get one down.
Just a little victory giver of war cry.
Well, just for time's sake,
morale.
Like, not even morale, just for time's sake. Like, we're
Okay.
running out of time. The first day, the whole day is almost over. And I said, we're going to shoot that thing. Or I'm going to shoot that thing. We back up. It didn't booger off. This one actually didn't bugger off right away. And I grabbed the muzzleloader out of the back seat. I look at the scope, and it's on 18 minutes. I'm like, that's not right. I've never dialed 18 minutes on this scope this whole trip. Said, I hope I put the zero stop in it. And I turn and I turn and I turn and I turn until the scope is just out of travel. I did not have the zero stop in it.
Yeah. Well, and even the zero stop on that particular model of scope isn't super precise.
But at least it would have stopped
Yeah, it would've
somewhere
given
in
you
a rev.
Yeah.
Revolution for those listening and watching. But I said, Ryan, I'm definitely shooting this thing now, 100%.
Shoot the
And
gun for sure.
I'm gonna guess on this antelope. And if you're kind of new to longer range shooting, if I'm off a revolution, I'm gonna miss the antelope entirely.
By a lot.
So no harm, no foul. I might just scare it a little bit, but I kind of guessed on where I felt that turret should be height wise. We did a quick little stalk. Ryan was on glass. I got a range. I think I dialed. I don't remember what I dialed, but it was 340 yards. And kaboom! Recoil actually takes me out of the scope, but I heard it smack it and
Hammered him.
just hammered him completely. He was down, blood everywhere. Not the best shot in the world, though.
It wasn't. A little back.
It was a little back, but I mean, just instant death.
Yeah.
It's
a big bullet.
300 grain bullet, traveling pretty quickly, and he was down quick. But must have been some wind out there that I didn't realize, or evidently that gun was getting beat up in the back seat.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got him quartered up. I think it was a 300-yard walk to the truck.
Wow.
And we had him on ice.
Yeah, it was.
So
That's
that
going to be a
was-
good
it was
tasting
nice.
goat.
Fortuitous.
Yeah. Getting it cool that quick.
Yep. Took a few pictures. We'll put those up right here. No, maybe right here. Getting cute with it. And then, yeah, headed out of there.
One goat in the books.
One goat down. Felt good.
Oh, it felt great.
Felt really good. Then I'll let you take over because
I remember.
What time is this?
This
So,
was.
like, what time
I
of the
remember
day?
looking at my watch, thinking we got like 2 hours, 2 good hours of light left. It was like
So that was
5:30.
had to be that had to
5
be
o'clock
yeah,
maybe.
5 o'clock,
4:35.
yeah. And yeah, because I remember we were talking about it. That you got the sunset time, half hour after sunset is legal shooting light, but out there it seemed like there's no way you could take a shot much past sundown. It just seemed like it got really dark really fast.
Sure, with
cloudy.
the moon too.
We were like, yeah, we got 2 hours of good light here. There's no way we're gonna find another buck and get him killed, but we're gonna drive back down that main road. So we get out of that pasture. Guys passing us as I'm opening that gate to get out of that pasture. Guy passes us, truckload of other hunters, archery hunters presumably. Then we turn the corner there. There's a guy stopped on the side of the road. I thought it was the same truck, but
Turns out
different
wasn't.
guys. We drive past him. We see another buck off this creek bottom. On the other side of this creek bottom, we're driving along. I'm like, hey, there's a buck. He's in a killable spot.
Like he's in range at the
He's
moment.
in range. Just get off the road a little bit. He's in range. So I get out, stop the truck, get out and glass, and I more than get him in my view. Then I hear this truck pull up beside us, and this guy's barking at me, saying that his boy's down there chasing him with a bow. So okay, another guy's
Yeah, get after
Already
it.
on the stock.
they're already on the books. I didn't know that. So we get in the truck and head and continue on. I don't know. Like to know if that kid ever shot that buck.
I hope he did.
He might have scared it at least.
But he looked like he was already onto him as we were looking at him. But anyway, so we proceed down that road. And I'm looking back behind me as we're driving by just because there's some decent hills.
Could be anywhere.
Could be anywhere. Just kind of in desperation. It's like we need to find something. And we're going to go after it. So and sure enough, I see a body. As I'm looking back behind me, we already drove past it. Like, hey, Preston, turn around. There's something back there. I don't think it's a doe, but I don't know. We're gonna check. If there's
wait.
does, there's probably bucks.
If you don't confirm what it is, you have to assume it's a massive non-typical.
At least a Boone Crockett.
Yeah, that's what my dad's always said, and that seems to hold true. I've seen a lot of massive non-typicals. Yeah. So you've seen what could have been Boone
Yeah,
Crockett.
so we had to confirm.
Mm-hmm.
So we turn around, get pulled off, and get to a point where we could glass see that there was indeed a buck over there. Didn't really tell what size he was, but that's all really more confirmation I needed. I grabbed my pack and I'm starting to head that way because it's
See
a buck.
ya.
So we get down there and okay, there's a route to take, but there isn't much cover there. There's gonna be a good distance here. It's a doe and a fawn, I think, at the time. That all I knew of up on this hillside feeding, and there's no way to cut any distance without being in the open for a little while. So we just do it, and they tolerate it for the time being. But they were still.
They tolerated it in the wide open while we were 500-600
Yep.
yards away. Then we finally get to a little bit of rolling hills, and Ryan puts on the stock.
Yep, same thing. Get to a hill. Okay, this is where we got to make our approach here for a shot. And by this time, that buck had dropped down and went up.
And he had a doe with him. That's why he didn't come
Oh.
out and worry about
Yep.
that other.
So now there's, I think, 4 does in that buck on this side hill
A lot of eyes on
feeding.
you.
And I get to 380, I think. First range was like 380. I'm like, no, that ain't gonna work. Same stock as I did earlier, and I'm scooting up on my belly trying to gain some distance. Put my hand in a cactus. That was awesome.
I think you put your knee in a cactus too.
Yeah.
Yeah, better than other parts, I suppose.
Luckily, yeah, they're the really fine, prickly ones. So
So they're going to stay in
they
your
stayed
knee
in
for
there
about
for
3 months.
Stayed
Yeah.
in there for like a week after or so. But anyway, get to a range. Okay, I start hearing. I think I ranged 340, and we're hearing the does make their
Distress
Weird
call.
distress
sound.
whistle buzz thing they make. But yeah,
It was odd.
so it's like okay, those does they about had it, and if those take off, that buck's gone. So I pull up my phone quick and get 340 in the BC calculator with the new setup I'm using. Not comfortable with that really, but there was no wind. And after I had passed up the opportunity earlier with a similar range shot, looking back on it, okay, I could probably make it happen. But luckily, there was no wind that I felt or saw.
And you shot at 300 here, right?
And I shot steel at 300.
Yeah.
And it was
Real
hitting that
consistent.
consistently. So I knew that the BC number I was using was pretty solid for that bullet. So, yep, I looked at what 340 was. Okay, I know my 300 hold point in my reticle, and I held that about accordingly.
Mhm.
I'm holding that 300 point just off the top edge of his back, and I send it and come off the gun and recoil. And I remember thinking in that 0.3 of a second window, crap, I missed him. Because then, obviously, we're shooting two completely different systems, but the time from shot to impact on Preston's at that same distance was bang, whop.
Boom, whack.
And so my mind is just thinking that because that was just a couple hours earlier. And I hear boom, pause. I'm like, oh, I missed him. Whack. And I hear
Yeah.
that bump. And I was like, okay, I'm coming back on the gun about right after I hear that. And yeah, the does take off and he turns to run with the does, but doesn't make it far, 10, 20 yards and stops. And so I'm watching him just stand there and he falls over not too long after that.
Ryan's also saying to me at this time, do I need to reload? And I said, absolutely not. So my side of the story is I'm 20 yards behind Ryan. I know this because I ranged Ryan,
Mhm.
and I also ranged the antelope at 360. So I know he's got a 340-yard shot. I said, this point in the day, he's doing it. I know he is.
Got the craziest look in his eye.
I finally get that range on Ryan after getting the range on the antelope, and I go back to the antelope with the binos, and it goes off. And it hits him. I know that for certain. It looked good. He
Nice
turned
right in the shoulder.
He turned, and the offside shoulder had a golf ball size exit wound with blood coming out of it immediately.
Yeah, right through the shoulders.
Yep. And
Perfect shot.
And he said, "Do I need to reload?" And I said, "I wouldn't worry about it if I were you," or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Are you sure?" I mean, the antelope did run a little ways. It had to run
10 or
out
20
of
yards,
oxygenated blood. And
I'm still looking at it through the scope, and I probably asked you that like 6 times.
yeah.
Even after he fell, I'm like, you think he's going to get back out? Do I need to reload? I just wanted to make sure he doesn't just get up and run off like, again, high shoulder, no man's land shot or something. But
yeah.
But you were
no,
pumped. I was pumped, but you were more pumped. And
I
it was
was
awesome.
jacked
It was
up.
awesome to see.
the fact of
The culmination of it all.
Yeah, I mean, this is months and months of
we were
stuff,
able to get that bullet made just in time before that trip. Got it just enough of them made. I could shoot some, get comfortable with the gun, and
then have it work exactly as it was designed and
able
intended.
to get me that capability to shoot a muzzleloader at 340 yards efficiently and effectively and hit home. And performance was, I couldn't ask for much better performance.
Yeah, so you get up there to quarter them up, and not to be morbid, but what was the terminal performance like?
I looked at entrance. I just missed his front shoulder. So just in front of the front shoulder, didn't get boned. Blew up ribs. Exited, just center punched the off shoulder on the backside. And, yeah.
Heart and lung area, just jello.
Probably missed the heart, but, yeah, the body cavity was just filled with blood. And
like I said, golf ball size exit wound.
It was
so
beautiful
that thing expanded.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
You kind of figured in the calculator, it was a little over 1,200 feet per second on impact and over 1,200 foot-pounds of energy.
Yeah, 1270-ish feet per second, and then 1290, 1250 foot-pounds energy at that impact.
At that distance.
Yeah.
And had not a complete max charge, I don't think.
No, 82 grains weighed of Blackhorn 209.
And what was that giving you for velocity?
1855 feet per second at the muzzle. And a Blackhorn max charge is 84 grains, so I could probably get 19, 15-ish if I got a max charge, but
unnecessary, it seems like.
Unnecessary. I just happened to choose that arbitrarily. Really, I didn't do a lot of load development there. I just wanted to get a little bit more.
Bullets.
Didn't have a lot of time.
Yep. But man, what a day.
But yeah, the feeling of getting 2 bucks killed that night, I was like, yeah, there's no way I thought we were going to get that done.
Like, we're going to have an all right Sunday.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to drive home, take our time,
yeah.
No rush, all this stuff. And so, yeah, we quartered him up. Ryan was cramping, lack of water.
Judd, I thought we talked about this.
Judd warned us.
Yeah, take your water.
I did drink. I thought I drank a fair amount. I usually do get pretty good at that, but it wasn't life or death situation.
No,
it was just a little.
Just,
I was working that knife, and I'm just like, oh, yeah, it was a little bit of pain here and there, but
so yeah,
it wasn't that bad. And yeah, we were 900,000 yards to the truck. From there, still was not that bad.
Yeah, didn't even put him on the pack. Just carried him out in game bag still.
But the story's not over.
No, not
because
quite.
you guys had supper, and you had to get through the night.
Well, yeah, supper was a little lackluster, to be honest with you. It was
I
the
thought you-
same exact thing as the night
Dang it,
before.
I was hoping you'd have a cheeseburger and you fed the coyotes. And
the cheeseburgers kind of got ruined. Our lovely hamburger patties got soaked from the melted water, the ice, melted ice, the water in the bottom of the cooler, and
they thawed themselves.
Okay.
They were not
to add to
very
the
good.
adventure side of the things.
So yeah, we eat
Got
supper.
some inclement weather.
Yeah, go to bed in our tents, I think. So we got back in the dark to the truck in the dark. Drove 45 minutes back to our camp in the dark, and pretty much ate some supper and then went to bed. I myself slept for a couple of hours, and then all of a sudden the tent was hitting me in the face or in the head, you know. And then I held it for a few minutes, and then I started getting wet. And I'm like, I have the rain fly on. This is not good. And
Wind, rain, and western Nebraska wind, obviously, it's going to
eventually
beat you.
I don't want to get wet. This is dumb. I'm going to the truck. And while it's happening, there's lightning. I see through the tent.
Lighting up the sky,
yeah.
So I head to the truck. I don't know. Ryan probably held out for another 15 minutes before I finally opened the door. Said, Ryan, it looks like it's going to get worse. You coming?
Because after that main front pass through, it kind of cleared up. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll be able to fall asleep now. And yeah, no chance.
No,
I wasn't sleeping. And then I start seeing lightning again.
Yep.
Like, oh boy, this is coming
That's
through
what I said.
again.
This looks worse than the last
This was
one.
2 in the morning, maybe. I don't remember what it was, but
So we watched a downloaded Netflix movie in my truck because it's pretty hard to sleep in a truck, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Just begging for sunlight to come. Eventually it does. Do a little bit more filming and hit the road.
yeah.
Great stuff. Now, before we change into our final gear here on the final antelope hunt, I want to hear Judd's thoughts on the juxtaposition of his hunt and his experience with that exact same area and how it compares to yours. Because from what I remember of episode 32, Judd didn't see any other hunting pressure. There were animals all over. He's picking over, oh, that's just an antelope. And then you guys, it seems like we're a lot less picky and had a little more competition. How'd that? So you think it was just the time you went?
I would say, well, it sounded like you guys saw a goat, so I don't know whether going, and then no other people wearing orange muzzleloader hunters.
Sure.
So I think the biggest thing to me is I had a dedicated, I've got 3 to 4 days to stay here. So my first day in, I was, my mindset wasn't ever rushed. And I picked the one spot, Judd's spot.
Yeah.
And that was where I was staying for the day. So it's a little bit bigger of a chunk. So I had my whole day. I had like a 10-mile loop I just mapped out and said, okay, this is what I want to work through. So, and that's what I stuck to. So never really feeling rushed or pressured or whatnot. And the one perk, it does take some time to get across the one big valley. And I don't know if I really realized this at the time, but once you got across that in this area, it did start to roll a little bit more of the hills. You had a little more topography to work with and to move around without antelope seeing you. So that probably helped me too. But I'd say the biggest thing was my whole mindset of, well, I got 4 days. So I ended up killing it on the first evening, but the whole way through that day, I was just happy-go-lucky. I'm here for a chunk of time. So any hunt to do in, a limited 2 or less days or one day,
feel the pressure.
It's tough. So
that's a good point. And you guys were on a weekend and you were during the week. So maybe that might be something to take away here. If you got the time expenditure, maybe go during the week.
The thing is, we originally had planned on doing just that. Remember, our original plan was to go Wednesday, but we had to make some adjustments so I could make it easier on my wife to deal with kids and work and stuff. And the original schedule got shifted to go to the weekend just to make it work easier.
Yeah. And I would say if we would have done Judd's spot first thing in the morning, but I wanted to be a little different,
Sure, you can just copy off the guy.
Can't just copy Judd.
Yeah.
But if we
Can't
would have
give
done
me that much credit.
If we would have done that, we wouldn't have seen another hunter. Because I don't think there's another road on the backside of that. I think you got to walk.
There's
that.
roads, but they're
private
roads.
Yeah. So
well, it sounds like the archery hunters on the weekend were probably because there's only 25 gun tags out there for a muzzleloader. So you're really not a whole lot of competition there. But the antelope tags. I mean, I don't know how many Nebraska sells a year.
Well,
total.
non-residents limited now, but I think residents still unlimited.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a ton of tags out there, a ton of people with archery equipment getting it on out there, which is great. But awesome. So that was a good recap. And
we earned those
yeah.
goats.
Yeah.
And for the viewers here, we do have Ryan's goat on the table, side by side with his
Hula Whopper.
Yeah. So another respectable goat. That's a Nebraska.
That is a Nebraska goat. This is very representative
of what you're going to
of
see
what
out
we
there.
were seeing out there. I mean, I think we saw a couple bigger ones, but overall,
Yeah.
they were smaller overall.
Yeah.
I
And you
just
get
got
out there
lucky.
on the private land chunks, just driving through, like when I'm driving that way to South Dakota or Wyoming or whatever, just driving through on those private chunks, you see goats that look like this here. But on the public land, that's a good representative of what you're going to see.
Yep.
All right. Last and final hunt now. Preston, Wyoming. Beautiful Wyoming.
Yeah, Casper, Wyoming.
Yeah, probably one of my favorite places in Wyoming.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, took off to Casper, Wyoming, and like literally as soon as we got past Douglas,
There
it was
they
like
are.
the density of antelope here is just absolutely insane, and every one of them from the interstate seemed like a shooter.
Yeah.
Like every one of them. But yeah, this is a guided hunt. I did have a couple of guys with me, but Coal Creek Outfitters is who we used, and Kelly Glaus. His son helps him a little, and his son has his own
Outfitting.
business as well. That one is
Heart Spear.
Heart Spear Outfitters. Yep. So Cody and Kelly Glaus, but Kelly was our guide on this one, Coal Creek Outfitters, and had a really, really nice piece of ground that we could go check out. It actually sits on 2 units, so we went through a majority of this lease, and it wasn't our unit, but we got to ours and started hunting. Both of the guys that were with me were able to shoot really respectable animals on the first day.
Yep.
Did have to change a flat tire without a lug nut wrench.
How'd you do that?
Well,
Did you grip it with your bad thumb that you smashed in the door?
But it was an 8-way adjustable wrench, so like each end of it had 4, and they would rotate.
Uh-huh.
So one of them barely fit, and we'd tap it on there, and then I'd stand on it and get them loosened,
Yeah.
and then we'd use it to tighten up. But you know what? We got her changed. Middle of nowhere, a nail.
Yeah.
But,
What are you going to do?
what are you going to do? You got to adapt and overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So day
It's
2.
part of the Western experience.
Yeah. So day 2. Oh, saw
one of the
bull
hunt.
elk there too.
Oh.
Cow elk there too.
Okay. Like kind of high desert, not super wooded, just kind of high desert
like
elk.
no wooded.
Yeah.
Yep, high desert for sure. So that was really neat. So those guys got their antelope, very respectable goats, probably low 70s in there.
Mm-hmm. I'd
day
say
1.
dandy goats.
Yep. Day 2 it was my turn. So however many goats we passed is however many percentage time 100 that I've ever passed antelope in my entire life. So it was odd. The first day we saw 3 dandy bucks first thing in the morning, and we just kept going. I'm like, what is going on here? Eventually, I ended up shooting the bigger out of all of them on day 2. But
Yeah.
it was a new experience for me. I've never passed so many antelope in my life, ever. I don't think I've passed antelope at all
No.
that I could.
No. I think
But yeah, saw a coyote. One of the guys got that coyote on day 2.
doing a service.
Yep. Did do 1 stalk on day 2. Got to within 106 yards of this goat, and so got a really good look at it, and just decided not to shoot. Kelly kind of pulled me off of it, and eventually we're going down this pasture road, and I see the number 2 buck from the day before.
Mm.
I said, he's very interesting antelope, unique, you might say. So he kind of come up wide, mass on the bases, right, and big cutters that splayed outward. And then as he'd go up where he'd hook, he just stopped. So he's a little bit shorter, but massive, right? And I said, Kelly, what is that antelope score? Like I'm not good at this. And he said, 72. I said, oh, so he's dead then.
Yes,
Let's go get
him. Yeah.
Yeah. So we make a play on him, right? We drive around. We're walking up this hill. Just as we get to the top, like I see him out of the corner of my eye, probably 500-600 yards away. But the other guys with us whistle, go. Well, they couldn't whistle. Mouth was dry and chapstick and chapped lips, but they get our attention. And said, "No, look over here." And I said, "No, he's right over here." No, they said, "Really, look over here." And the buck I ended up shooting was right there, 260 yards. I mean, as picture perfect as you can imagine. A couple of the does were on to us, kind of like your deal, but this buck was bedded looking the other direction. Like the does were his lookout. But yeah, was able to take a nice antelope, 14-inch horns, not near the mass as Ryan's here, but
a good goat.
Very respectable goat. I'm so tickled pink and blessed, and we quartered him up right there and took him into town.
Excellent
trip. Never seen so many antelope in my life.
Right there just kind of shows the example of what Ryan experienced in Utah, what you experienced in Wyoming, hunting private ground, and not that that's a fish in a barrel type thing, but just being able to get away with like, oh, they see me, and they're not running. You know, they're not cool with it. They're just kind of milling around, or they're eyeballing me, but they're not sprinting over the hill like where you guys saw the overpressured type animal population, and they're going.
Yep. So it was very interesting. I love antelope. Some people don't like the way they smell. Some people don't like the way they taste. I love them.
Some people want to dog it.
Yeah.
I think antelope. We've said it. One of my favorites. Now, in the hotel lobby, you met a fan.
Oh, I did, and I apologize. I forgot his name. I could ask Cody, but he was actually getting guided by Cody. He's from Wisconsin.
Okay.
Viewer of the show. They went out with Cody, him, his dad, and his daughter. They got 3 nice goats.
Beautiful.
Heck yeah.
Well, that's cool that, if you do see any of us out at a trade show or out and about. In the wild, at the airport, whatever, we'd love to hear from you because, not that we're trying to be celebrities, but this podcast has turned out to be, I think, more work than what we anticipated it would be. And it's certainly a passion project, though. I enjoy doing it. I know you guys are having fun anytime we can talk about cool stuff and hang out. And it's like you step into a time warp, like next thing you know, it's like, oh my gosh, we've been chatting for an hour about stuff we care about. And so it's always good to get the support from the people out there that are enjoying the podcast. And that means a lot to us.
Yeah, that was kind of like my first, oh my gosh. Like I saw you from the podcast moment. I'm like, I didn't know you'd recognize me. I mean,
you're a pretty recognizable guy.
Yeah, it was really neat, and it was cool to see a father and a guy and his daughter out there just getting it done hunting together. That was neat.
Total Western experience.
Yep.
Yeah, and nothing's more Western than antelope.
Correct.
I just so iconic. But that's an awesome fall for you guys. Talk about Grand Slam. 4 goats, 3 different states. Great.
4 goats, 2 really good ones.
Yeah, and the
and
experience.
They all taste great.
I was gonna say you got the meat, which is a lot of our favorite game meat, and you get the experience, the hunting knowledge, and just the camaraderie. The 6-hour drive, the 8-hour drive where you're listening to a podcast, or cranking the polka music and stopping at the gas stations. It's just good fun, and that to me is worth it way more than the animals. It's just, I like to go on a solo hunt every now and then, but sharing it with friends and family is just cool.
I really enjoy getting up on top of a hill with some glass and just looking. Yeah, it's really fun. Ryan has a 2000s rock playlist that we went hard on.
Classic. Yep. This was in the weight room circa 2006.
And I knew every song.
Yeah. That's great. Well, before we close this up and do our final remarks, since we've got 4 antelope down, I want to go around the table and hear what's your favorite recipe for antelope, because we've mentioned it's my favorite game animal. What are you guys doing for antelope? Ryan, you got the antelope down. You're going home to the wife and kids. What are you cooking?
So I take the back straps, cut them in half, which is usually what I do for deer too, but even antelope are a smaller back strap. So that's small enough I can justify cooking that all in the frying pan.
Mm-hmm.
I do a overnight marinade. I could take or leave the marinade, to be honest, but sometimes I'll do that. But the main point of the recipe is hot and fast in the frying pan.
Mm-hmm.
Butter.
Yep.
This year, fresh rosemary from the garden in the pan with
Fancy.
Fancy.
Yeah, and I get it. So it's not. I got a nice seasoning crust on it, so it crusts up nice. And yeah, internal temp to about that's 120, and I'm taking it off. And you don't even have to put it in the oven. Use like on a bigger deer back strap. I'll need to get it seared, and then I got to put it in the oven to finish it. Otherwise, the outside gets too charred. But the antelope back strap's small enough in diameter, it'll cook all the way through to where I want it to, just in the surface heat in the pan.
Mm-hmm.
Take it off, let it rest, covered. Bob's your uncle.
Easy day.
Kids
Don't
love
overhandle it.
You don't need to get fancy.
Something simple,
It's tender.
tasty.
Captain Rosemary.
Salt,
don't have
butter,
to get fancy.
rosemary. And I do that. The seasoning, the surface seasoning, I'll shake that up, depending on whatever I'm feeling at the time.
What you pairing it with, maybe?
Yeah, like the barbecue rubs and that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's almost, to me, antelope almost has, I'm going to say sweet. That's obviously an overstatement, but compared to other venison, it's almost more of a sweeter, lighter flavor. So keeping it simple makes sense. Preston, what are you doing?
Two ways, pretty similar to Ryan. Cast iron. I don't know if you mentioned that.
I didn't even
You
use
don't.
cast iron.
So I do use cast iron.
Well seasoned.
Yeah,
Of course.
by seasoned professionals. So cast iron, I'll do it his way. Antelope is so thin
Mm-hmm.
that you can absolutely do that. I'll do a steak seasoning, and it doesn't matter what brand necessarily, but we're heavy on black pepper, salt, garlic powder, onion powder.
Mhm.
So that type of a seasoning. When I do just the cast iron, I mean, you get a fantastic sear in that. I'll pull it at 115. That's the number I'm looking for.
Let her
Because
sit.
it is going to carry over a little bit.
Yep.
I don't do butter or the rosemary, but I'll do. We got a tub of Wagyu tallow. Fat.
Yeah.
So
You just
I'll
want to
throw
take
them
a
in
bath
there.
in that stuff,
Yeah.
slather it all over you.
I do that or butter. But then the other way I like to do it is sous vide.
Sous vide.
Water
All right.
immersion
Mm-hmm.
circulator, and I'll turn that to 115 degrees. Ideally, I'll have that steak seasoning in the bag already. If not, no big deal. I'll just put it on afterwards. But after I take that out, you have to let it rest and cool down. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good sear.
Right.
You have to have cold on hot to get a nice sear.
Yep.
So I'll let it cool down as much as I can, and then I'll just literally a minute and a half in the cast iron, as ripping hot as it'll get, both sides.
Beautiful.
And then I will take Himalayan pink salt or
Sea
whatever
salt,
it
yeah,
is,
Himalayan sea salt.
thicker,
Yeah.
crunch
coarse.
it up coarse,
Mm-hmm.
and then that'll be a little bit of finishing salt. Bob's your uncle.
Man,
Attaboy.
that does sound all right.
Yep.
Mr.
Oh.
Jarzinka.
I've been a few years out of the game on antelope, so I'm trying to think back, and I think I go pretty basic, and I do the same thing with like deer backstrap or whatnot. But I've got a pellet grill, so I'll fire
Oh,
the
yeah.
pellet grill up on the lowest setting, throw it out there. First, I guess I should say just olive oil, salt and pepper, maybe some garlic salt or something not too fancy,
Okay.
and then let it smoke on the lowest setting for a half hour, 45 minutes to an hour, pull it off, crank it up to 400 or whatever, and
Yeah.
slap it back on there till it's 125-ish. I like it, a little bit more rare, and then rest it after that and chow down. So
A classic reverse sear.
pretty straightforward on that. So
But all those pellet grills, I
Yeah.
mean, they just
and
they
it's easy.
enhance it.
Set it and forget it. So yeah. I need to get another one. As we're talking about this whole story, as far as an antelope,
Yeah.
I've got points in a couple different states and building my points back in Nebraska. So,
Burn them up.
need to start figuring that out, getting back out there. Because, it's been a few years for me. So.
Yeah. Well, and we've said this before. I wish they were bigger.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, they're so tasty. And so for me, my favorite recipe with antelope and really with any wild game, what I like to do with them, especially with the antelope, and again, I'm a bunch of years removed too from it, is kind of like a play on carne asada. So I'll do this same thing, but two different ways. So when I take my time and I'm at home, I usually take a backstrap or the tenderloins because I have a very strict we're not freezing tenderloins rule, so we're eating those right away. And I'll do avocado oil, orange juice, squeeze a couple limes all into a Ziploc bag. Squeeze a couple limes and then drop the limes in there. Dice up some onion, throw that in there. And then we usually buy the big jar of minced garlic, big old spoonful of minced garlic, cumin, black pepper, and paprika. And I'll soak those in there 12 hours overnight, something like that. And then another way you can do this, I forgot if I mentioned orange juice. That's the main one, is avocado oil, orange juice, lime juice. One thing I did with the first antelope, really the only antelope I've killed, we killed it in Wyoming. We stopped at a gas station. Can't remember if we were in Lusk or if we stopped in Nebraska that night or that next morning. Anyways, bought a packet of taco seasoning and a little to-go orange juice, taco seasoning, rolled that up, put it in the cooler, drove home for 8 hours or 6 hours, whatever. And then when you get home, you've got pre-marinated carne asada. And then, get the grill ripping 450, 500 degrees, 2 minutes aside. It's about 115 degrees, 120. Pull it, let it rest, slice it, and I don't know, the acidity complements kind of the sweetness of the antelope. And I'm not saying it hides gamey flavor or anything, but it's just it's so good. You can put it in tacos, but on a tenderloin, we'll just slice it up into medallions and throw them down.
I may get some flack for this, but gaminess in meat, for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, comes from overcooking it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, unless you're counting that first mule deer that I shot way back when. That thing was borderline unedible.
Gamey regardless. But
yeah,
we could have a whole podcast just on that because I have some strong opinions.
Let's do it.
On people saying stuff tastes gamey and how they prepare it from the kill to all the way through to the table.
I will say, every antelope that was killed, talked about on this podcast, these 4 antelope had the hides off of them within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Expiring.
And you've mentioned that in podcast previous that I'm going to call it hair, but it's hollow. It's such a great insulator. And yeah, you might gut them and open them up, but that insulation layer on the outside is going to cook that meat, and not cook it, but keep it pretty warm.
Keep it warm. So anyway, that I do like to take care of animals that quickly if I can.
100%.
It's for a better product.
Yep, and we love eating that finished product.
That's right.
Awesome. Anybody got
anybody else hungry?
Yeah, no kidding, right? Closing remarks on the postseason pronghorn. Obviously, it was a successful season for you guys. It's done nothing but fuel my fire, not just for antelope, but hunting in general, because we are in the thick of it. Mr. Jarzinkas here's got a wedding coming up, and once that's out of the way,
maybe I can hunt.
He'll be out.
That,
yeah, he'll be out.
Vacation.
Yeah, he'll be on the rut. Yeah, it'll be rut season for the Jarzinkas. But I know you guys are all trail cameras. Every morning we get in there, you guys are swapping trail cam photos and talking shop, and conversations like this just drive it home.
Yeah, you may hear this podcast in 3 days, and I've got bucks chasing on cameras right now.
Beautiful thing. Yeah, they're starting to get curious though.
Things are happening.
Love it. As it relates to pronghorn, anybody got any closing remarks?
It's one of my favorite Western hunts. I love it.
I think we've mentioned this too. If you're thinking about going to do a Western hunt, I'd start with antelope.
I'd say being able to do 2 hunts in the same year so close together, I think I like it more than I did going into this season.
Mm-hmm.
Now it urges me to use up my points, like Judd said. I got points, a bunch of Western points for pronghorn too. That I got a little more urgency to use them in closer.
Yeah. Well, and with Nebraska being so frivolous, not the right word, but just open. I mean, you can, if you're willing to bow hunt, there's a lot of opportunities here, and even with the states neighboring us for the gun hunters, there's a lot of opportunity there with not a ton of time.
Oh.
Groovy.
Yep.
Well, again, thanks guys for sitting around, for sharing the stories, and everybody out there in podcast land. Hope you enjoyed the postseason pronghorn. Obviously, it was a success, and we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you get out there and do some hunting. We'll catch you on the next one.